What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Scott here, and the Warriors season comes to an early end in the play-in tournament, the 9-10 game against the Sacramento Kings, a team that this team beat just less than 365 days ago in the first round of the playoffs. 7-game series was probably the best series of the playoffs last year, and the Warriors go down 94 to 118 in a really up and down year. But we saw over the last month or so of the season that this team really did kind of turn a corner and finish 10-2 in the last 12 games of the season. But all year, just too many mistakes, too many blown games to give yourself a better position in the playoffs. And really, that's what it ended up doing this team in. I believe if they were what they were last year, a 6 seed, I believe that, they could possibly go on a little run, because obviously, yes, you still have Steph Curry, but, guys, and we're going to take the game out from last night, the performances from last night, should I say, out. But Klay Thompson had been playing well. He'd been thriving in kind of the new role, kind of the second half, last third of the season that he was in. He was thriving in that role. Draymond shooting his best 3-point percentage of his career, I believe, this year. He was rolling, obviously, and then Jonathan Kuminga. He was in the starting lineup, obviously, earlier this year, but since he was briefly injured and then came back, he has been on the bench, because as Steve Kerr's done his whole coaching tenure, if a lineup's working, he's going to stick to it. A great example is the 22 playoffs when Steph got hurt before at the end of the regular season, and when he came back to start the playoffs, he stayed on the bench. And even as he got his win for the first couple of games, he didn't put Steph back into the starting lineup until, I believe it was after game 3 they lost. I believe they went up 3-1. No, I think it was game 4. Yeah, game 3 or 4. Whichever one it was that they lost, then he did finally end up making that change and going back. So that's what Steve's done. So that's why Kuminga's been on the bench. But other guys as well. Trace Jackson Davis, had been playing well as well. Obviously a late second round pick that had really found a role for himself on this team. But yeah, so there was really optimism going into this game. We talked about it yesterday. On kind of the preview. We didn't dive too deep into it, but really I thought that this was, something that if they won tonight, then I liked their chances against the Pelicans. I didn't want to play the Lakers again if I'm the Warriors, just because of the history there and everything. Obviously, for Steve Kerr, he was going to have to go through 2 former assistants if he wanted to get to the playoffs. He had to go through Mike Brown versus Sacramento, and then he was going to have to go through the Pelicans and Willie Green. But so that was a storyline that was there as well. But we'll just talk about the game last night here. 94 to 118. Really, you should have been down like 14 at halftime, and you ended up going into half only down 4, which felt like a miracle. At times in the first half, it looked like Sac was pulling away, but then Golden State punched back. They punched back. They got it close. To start the game, really, Trace Jackson Davis started at the 5 spot. I was kind of surprised, given the success that Looney had last year, that he didn't start there. Both Looney and Jackson Davis played. Jackson Davis only 11 minutes, Looney only 9 minutes. Really surprised by that, given how the series went last year with Looney out there. But yeah, so that was kind of surprising. Obviously, then the second half, just the Kings haymakers, they just kept coming. And you really, at the end of the day, you just have to tip your cap and give credit to Sacramento, Mike Brown, and the whole team for stepping up and making plays. I mean, De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, Harrison Barnes, and then Chris Murray had the game of the night, really. 32 points for him, 8 for 13 from 3. And they were doing all this without 2 of their best players in Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter, and especially their bench. They had such a small bench because, when De'Aaron Fox is off the floor, it was Malik Monk with the ball in his hands. And even when they were on the floor together, it was a lot of the times, Malik Monk creating. De'Aaron does a good job running off the ball, as we've seen last year in the playoffs. And they, without both of those guys, and they came in and just took it to Golden State the whole night. So you got to give credit where credit's due. They had other guys that stepped up for them. Obviously, the big story, Keon Ellis, the undrafted rookie out of Alabama. He was playing good defense all night. I would say good defense, but he was fouling a lot all night. But he was playing decent defense all night for them. Made some big shots as well for them, and finished with 15 points. And their whole starting lineup. Listen to this starting lineup: plus minus. Plus 25, plus 29, plus 20, plus 20, plus 27. You're not winning any game like that. I don't care how good you're playing. You're not winning any game like that. And when you flip that for the Warriors, you had a minus 22, a minus 10, minus 25, and minus 21, and minus 12. So really all night it was De'Aaron Fox, heavy dose of him. He went 11 for 25, but it really, and 2 for 8 from 3, but it really felt like he missed like 3 shots all night. I don't know where he missed 14 shots, because I certainly don't remember that many. Sabonis, I thought he was, yes, he had 16, 12, 7 assists as well. But I thought at times the Warriors did a good job at, defending him and making life difficult for him. But just too many times he was just able to make a play at the rim, and the Warriors just had no answer for that. Giving up 15 offensive rebounds was a big story of the game for Golden State. Also, a big story for the Kings was shooting 46% from 3, 44% from the field. Then you flip that for the Warriors, shooting 31% from 3, 41% from the field. Again, you're not going to win many games like that, especially when you also couple that with 16 turnovers compared to only 8 for the Kings. But then, obviously, the hard thing here, Klay Thompson just, even though as well as he's been playing the last couple months of the season, could not get it going. 0 for 10, 0 for 6 from 3. Just could not buy a basket at all. Could not buy anything. They were making stuff difficult for Steph, but he was, he still got his. I don't think he got as many shots off as would like him to. Only went 8 for 16 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3. Would have liked to see him get more off. I thought Draymond played pretty well. I thought he, could have initiated the offense a little bit better. He did have 6 assists, but, there just wasn't a whole lot of movement. And a lot of it starts with him. But Sacramento was doing a good job, kind of picking up above the free throw line, making life difficult, playing kind of gap defense, and playing over the top of, Golden State's wings when they're trying to cut and whatnot. But I thought Draymond, played pretty well besides that portion. He was 2 for 4 from 3. And then some bright spots, really. You got to give it to the young guys. The young guys are what kept the Warriors in this game. Jonathan Kuminga, 16 points, 7 rebounds. He really kept attacking the basket. He had a nice mid-range flow going there to keep the Warriors in the game there in the first half. And then you had to also shout out Moses Moody, 16 points, 4 for 5 from the free throw line, 2 for 4 from 3, 5 for 8 from the field overall. But he was just that solid piece, like a solid piece. Not going to, make too many mistakes. Just came in and did his job, and then, provided a scoring boost as well. He was tied with JK with 16 points, and, they were second on the team behind only Steph in terms of points scored. And then shout out to Pods, Brandon Pajemski as well. Only had 5 points, but 8 rebounds as well, and just, kind of running the team. Doesn't take any stupid shots either. 2 for 3 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3. Just does the right thing, and that's what I got to say about, this guy, specifically Moody and Pajemski. They just, put the ball where you need to put the ball, hang on to the ball. Also, Pajemski had 1 turnover. Moody, I don't think had any. No, he didn't have any. So that's encouraging to see, at least as we transition to, what's next and what's going forward. Obviously, this offseason, the big question is Klay Thompson coming back? Obviously, he's a free agent. I believe he will. I believe it'd be stupid not to bring him back. And I think Draymond said it post-game last night. There's not a world where our team isn't better if Klay Thompson isn't on the team. Like, he needs to be on this team. Steve Kerr echoed the same thoughts. Like, we need Klay Thompson on this team. I think he will. I think he'll be here. I obviously do think that it'll be a smaller role going forward, because I think you have to, going forward, whatever you do, if you start, obviously you're starting Steph, you're starting Draymond, so there's two right there. You have to fill in the other pieces, whether Clay fills in at that 2, and then who fills in at the 3 and 5. Obviously you have Wiggins, you have Looney, you have Jackson Davis. So in my opinion, Klay Thompson needs to come back and keep this trio together. You're not going to. I think he wants to stay here. I don't think he's going to be tempted by, some team, say the Magic is the one that's rumored to offer him, quite a bit of money to go there. I don't think he's going to be interested in that. I think he wants to stay here with his guys that he came in with. But, obviously, who knows? It's a business at the end of the day, but I think Klay will be back in a Warrior uniform come October. Then, obviously, the other tough questions as well. Andrew Wiggins, obviously, a guy who's helped this team win that title. Like, we do not win that title in 22 without Wiggs. But the unfortunate and, tough conversation that I think you have to have is, he hasn't really been the same player since then. Last year, obviously, he had a long absence due to a family matter. And, that kind of threw him out of his rhythm. He wasn't in a great rhythm beforehand and, even struggled, obviously, afterwards to get back into that rhythm, or any rhythm at all. And then this year as well, just really never got into a rhythm. We haven't seen, him play to that level since the 22 finals. And, given his contract, I don't know what you can get for him, but I think, time, it might be time to move forward from Andrew. You think for all that he's done, obviously, for the organization. As I keep saying, we don't have that chip in 22 without him. But I think you try to see what you can get for him. What can you get for him? I don't know. The other question, Chris Paul. Does he come back as well? I was questionable. Obviously, I've been someone who has, when we immediately traded for Chris Paul, I was like, oh, we gotta be dropping him. We gotta be, sending him elsewhere for what? And we're like, oh no, we're hanging on to him. I didn't think that made sense at all. I get needing a backup ball handler off the bench for the non-Steph Curry minutes, but obviously you didn't know this going into the year. But I think you found that with Brandon Pajemski. I think he needs to fill that ball handling role when Steph is not on the floor. So I think it's best for both parties to find. So I forget Chris's contract situation, but I know Steve wants him on the team. Obviously, he's a great high IQ player, do stuff. But look at tonight. Comes in 3 points, only 2 assists, and only plays 18 minutes. I mean, for me, I'd rather allocate a few more of those minutes to Pajemski or Moody. Just try to find something else somewhere for me personally, or obviously see what you can get for him and Wiggins. In my opinion, I think best case scenario going forward next year is a starting lineup of Steph, Kuminga, Draymond Green, and then Trayce Jackson-Davis at the 5, and then the 2. You either have Klay Thompson, and then you use those pieces in Andrew Wiggins, Chris Paul, and you use that to turn that into another, I don't even want to say star, but another, high quality 2 guard that, can help shooting. Because Steve even said it in the post game. They're top heavy shooting. Obviously Steph and Klay there, but besides that, they're kind of hit or miss. Pajemski, can hit the 3 as well. Moody as well can hit some knockdown shots, but really they're top heavy with that, as Steve said there. So if you can get a good, obviously getting a great two-way 2 would be really good, but when you have a lineup with Kuminga and Draymond and Trayce Jackson-Davis behind them, if you could get someone who can, play off the bounce there at the 2 spot both ways, and then obviously can fill it up from 3 as well, to add another body to Steph and Klay, I think that would be great. So if you have that as your starting lineup, then you have a second unit of Pajemski, Klay, Moody, Looney, and then, GP2 as well. And, fill in. Obviously, I don't think the Dario Saric experiment didn't go well this year. He will not be back. I know that. Do you go with Gui Santos, or do you go with Usman Garuba? Do you have one of them as your bigs? or another 4 that you can throw in there as well. But yeah, in my opinion, I think that's the best case scenario. You try to flip Wiggs and Paul, and whether that's free agency or trade, sign and trade, whatever, you try to flip that into another 2 guard who can, immediately plug and play in the starting lineup, or if you want to continue to start Clay, is an immediate, high 25 plus minute per game 2 off the bench, and then free it up because Kuminga needs to start. He needs to start. I'm not along with the, kind of narrative that he's not on, Steph and Clay and Dre's timeline. He can start. He can play. We saw it tonight. He's one of the few people that showed up. The young guys are one of the few people that showed up. So Kuminga needs to start. I like Trace Jackson-Davis starting, especially in that front line with Draymond down there. I think that gives him a lot of versatility down there, especially to defend some of the bigger guys that they'll defend throughout the course of the season. The Jokic's, Embiid's, and so on and so forth. But I think that would be the ideal route for me for this team going forward to attack the off season that way. We'll see if they will, and then give complete all the backup ball handling duties to Podziemski when Steph's not on the floor, and even when he is on the floor, we obviously know how well Steph plays off the ball. So yeah, I think just giving these guys more freedom going into next year. We saw what happened when you gave Kuminga more freedom this year. So I'd like to see more of that going forward. But obviously going forward, we'll talk about this a lot more, as the playoffs go through and when the draft comes in June. We'll talk about this more, approaching free agency, going into next season. But definitely a disappointing year. But given the circumstances, I think they were able to turn it around pretty well. But I think some of the warts from the beginning of the season just unfortunately did this team in, putting them in that 10 spot and that play-in game. But it's unfortunate. You're 10 games above 500. You're playing well, and you still end up with a 10 seed in the West. I think if you had this record last year, I think it was you were the 4th seed or 5th seed. We had a better record this year than we did last year, and we were the 6th seed. So I mean, that just tells you, how tough the West was this year. But unfortunate ending to the season. But I think kind of I wouldn't call it a fresh reset coming forward, but I think changes are coming. It's probably not the changes that people are thinking is going to happen, but I do believe changes are coming down the line this summer. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.